Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today the portfolio is sitting at about 1.2 million so far. I believe a lot of you guys, if you've been tracking the markets, everything is at an all-time high, and it's a great thing, right? It's a great thing that your net worth has basically increased. But at the same time, when everything is at an all-time high, you want to be a bit cautious. You want to be a bit careful as well. So just letting you know, I mean, congratulations, guys, if you are beating the market. But if you're not, then it's fine as well. Just get invested, just start the process and stuff like that. All right. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about one of my biggest positions over here, which is the HIMS portfolio. And HIMS itself, I believe, this market value for me, I believe it's going to a million for me. It will become from 400K to go to $1 million basically. And I believe actually it'll hit $100. Right now, HIMS I think is sitting at about 52-ish or so. So I believe there's still quite a bit of runway for this company to basically 2x and 3x, right? So I'm not really worried about the long term thing, but there's a lot of people on Twitter and stuff like that who have been basically bashing this stock and saying that this shit is going to go down, etc., etc. But yeah, so maybe I give you a bit of context of what is happening, right? So over the past year or so, this stock has basically consolidated. When I say consolidated, it basically means it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And it basically does not go anywhere for a couple of months. This is what consolidation means. And a lot of people are very frustrated, right? They're saying, oh, this company is not going to go anywhere. The stock price doesn't move. And then there's a lot of regulatory hurdles that are coming as well. So the first one that is happening is that basically the president basically launched his own HIMS. How do I say this? He basically tries to compete with HIMS, or like they say it's competing in a sense where they're trying to launch a site where with they sell pharmaceutical at a very very discounted rate so that Americans get lower pricing for drugs basically, right? So that's basically the first headwind per se. And then people are saying that this is terrible for HIMS because once Trump comes in, for example, and then makes a deal with Pfizer, this is basically a government entity, and so you're basically dealing with the government right here. So it says it's going to launch in 2026, for example. It's going to take consumers to pharmaceuticals to fulfill orders, stuff like that. And then, yeah, drugs from Pfizer, for example, will be 50% lower on average. Okay. So the thing about this type of news, right, is that even though that this is true and this is good for Americans in general, a lot of the times this is purely a drug website, right? And if you know anything about governments are terrible at running businesses. So a business, for example, they are a for-profit organization, right? So people running this thing, for example, have incentive to make the product better so that people don't have refunds, etc., etc. This one here, I do not know what is going to happen, but everything Trump has touched so far has basically imploded or like has not really been successful, right? Like for example, like the tariffs, right? It's terrible for America actually. People are Is an inflationary measure. People are getting stuff more expensive, and Trump doesn't care because he thinks that money is coming in, etc. Right? So a lot of the times, the good intentions that this dude has, for example, his execution is not really good. I would say, even though he has good intentions, right? So this one here, I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but how is a for-profit company just going to hand over all of its drugs, for example, and then to give at discounted prices in exchange for something else, right? This is almost like communism, where you're forcing a private company to do something. So considering we are in 2025 now, this has not even done anything. Like they have not even executed anything. And anybody knows that if you set up a business in general, even if it's government related, you still need to execute. You need to get customers. You need people to trust you, even though that the government is involved, etc. Here, but the U.S. government does not have a very good reputation of executing most things in general, right? So we'll see what happens here. But even they say they're gonna start this in 2026, right? And yeah, it's gonna take time to do stuff, right? So it's like from a shareholder perspective, from a HIMS shareholder perspective, it does not really affect the stock price. I don't really feel it like affects future earnings of this company, and so I'm still comfortable holding it. That's number one. All right. So number two, people are saying there's a lot of FUD. I don't know whether you guys know what FUD is, but fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But basically, a lot of people are saying that Row, this company right here, they're basically a telemedicine company that is similar to HIMS. And then they recently got like Serena Williams or some celebrity endorsement, etc. And then what they're doing is they're basically partnering with Novo, which previously HIMS was partnered with Novo, and then they're selling the GLP ones, basically this Wegovy drug right here, and they're selling it at a very very low cash price. Yeah, so they're basically like trying to undercut HIMS, for example, and then they're trying to sell, etc. Okay, so a lot of times when competitors come into your space, it's normal to have competitors because like if there's money in your space, people are going to see your money and they want to compete for your money, right? So it totally makes sense that competitors come in. And Novo, right? I know they broke a partnership with HIMS, and then they came to this platform with Row, and then they partner with them, for example. But like I said before, like anytime something new happens in the space, right, you cannot expect instant success. It's like a lot of the times first mover advantage matters and scale matters in business in general, right? And so they are just still trying to figure out how to integrate their services and how to cooperate together. And HIMS basically is already selling I believe they sell a semi-glutide, or they sell a compounded version of this drug, basically, right? So from a shareholder perspective, when I look at revenue, for example, right, these guys are already scaling revenue, right? There's a dip in revenue because of the GLP ones. They basically like Novo changed their partnership and stuff like that, and then they went to these guys. But it does not mean like momentum in business is actually really important. And I believe that HIMS, in terms of execution, the team wise, right, yeah, they are just way bigger, or they are way more established than Row at this point in time, right? In terms of market credibility, etc., etc. So it kind of matters. I feel it kind of matters, especially it's like a drug space, right? All right. So apart from that, like when I do additional due diligence on like figuring out, hey, do I need to sell this thing because it's like I don't want to lose my money, right? So I look at the CEO. The CEO, for example, recently hired a new director of engineering, and so this guy here, for example, if you see, right, this guy joined Amazon back in the day, and then they're selling books, etc., etc. Having spent time most of my life in startups, I can never honestly say I've never been on a team with such robust vision of the product and the company's future, and more importantly, how to get there, right? So a lot of the times, like Andrew's, I feel the CEO's vision of the company is like you are a healthcare company. You're not just a fat loss company. You don't sell one specific drug, which is this one, which is like fat loss, right? So you are a all-in-one solution for telemedicine and medicine in general, and you cannot unseat, you cannot really basically replace that overnight. You can't like beat the competition just because you hired somebody, sorry, just because you partner with somebody, or like just because you launched a website, or you decided to go into pharmaceuticals, basically, right? So a lot of the times these news, right, I feel is fear, uncertainty, doubt, is just driving the stock price down temporarily, which like it does not really phase me on my conviction in the long term. I do believe that this company will still grow. It's still very, very young. It's still quite small, actually. It's still like 12 billion, right? And if you think about the pharmaceutical space, Americans are going to be, a lot of them are obese. A lot of them are unhealthy. They still need to buy products from somewhere, right? So there's still a lot of room to grow here from a 12 billion valuation to a 20, 30 billion valuation, which, yeah, if it hits like 50, $100 billion valuation, which is as big as a Procter and Gamble, yeah, let me search, is it P&G? So Procter and Gamble, for example, they sell consumer goods, right? They sell it to every single company. They sell like washing powder, they sell shampoos, etc., etc. Like they are at 350 billion, right? So like still a very, very early category. And when I go and check out like the reviews, for example, right? This is Amazon. Amazon cannot be biased, right? So you can see like the reviews are very, very consistent. Okay, and then they just hired this guy, director of engineering. So if you see here, this guy was an early how do I say this? He was an early employee at Tinder, and I believe he was at Amazon. No, is it this guy? Okay, no, he was just basically a bunch of startups, and then he went to Tinder, for example, right? So when this guy, for example, makes a statement like that, right? Yeah, it's just like, okay, you have the technology advantage, you have the people advantage, and you have a very clear vision of the future of what your company will look like. Yeah, it's like you're betting on these management teams to execute on their vision, basically, right? So yeah, this is a very good high. This is actually good news. And so like all of this stuff about competitors, what they're doing, etc., etc., it is not like fundamental to the company, right? Only when there is a fundamental change to the company's health, or how do I say this, to the company's underlying assets, and like how is it being affected, then I'm worried, right? For example, like the CEO starts selling his stock. No, sorry, the CEO does like some weird management change, for example, or like the CEO is saying some out of pocket stuff, or the guidance is not good, for example, right? That is like fundamental. Yeah, there's basically like fundamental problems. But a lot of the times, like when I go and check out the news, right, the headlines are very fluffy. They're just like, oh, like there's just a health debate, etc. So you can see here it's like attracting investor attention, why it slipped today. Yeah, so I do understand, right? if you're aware, for example, like Bloomberg or like CNBC, for example, these people are paid by competitors, right? Their news, they have an agenda to push. So I'm not too worried about like if you're just pushing an agenda because you want the stock price to go down temporarily, for example, right? So you can see here, 19 days ago, blah blah blah, Eli Lilly, Novo face FDA security, blah blah, right? So this type of news is like really bearish, and people get scared, and then they sell, and then like you will never see the gains that you'll see unless you hold, right? But the thing is like if you hold, then you'll get the gains. So it's a very very weird chicken and egg problem where investing is the ability to do nothing for a very long period of time, but also being able to assess your risk, right? So for example, you see here 20 days ago, right? It's like just news. It's just freaking news. Like HIMS and hers shares dropped 6% after FDA warning. Yeah, it's just a warning, right? It's like it's not like they're doing anything illegal. It's not like they are um yeah, they did something wrong. Okay, so like semi-glutide marketing claims, for example, right? So they probably just need to change some advertising stuff that the FDA have said yeah, it's being scrutinized basically. Yeah. To be fair, like they do acquire customers based on their advertising, right? So if the advertising changes, it becomes less efficient, for example, that may potentially affect the stock price as well. But yeah, from a fundamental basis, it's like nothing has changed about the company, and I'm not too worried about this. Okay, so moving forward, since I'm not selling this stock, anyways, um, like, but I do see a lot. I do like hear a lot of the news from Twitter and stuff like that, and like the sentiment of people of like, oh, this is shit, this stock is shit, etc., etc. But like, you just gotta stay into it, right? You just gotta stay and stay the course. All right. So now that we understand that, okay, there's more competitors coming in. We have a new director of engineering. Hopefully, they can build up a great tech platform. They're able to increase the LTV over time, etc., etc. Right? How should I see this stock playing out over the next maybe 2 to 3 years, for example? Okay, so from a let's see from a revenue perspective, let's see from a net income perspective, because I think it's important for you guys to see or like really understand, right? It's like um, all right, where can I see this? Okay, so I would like to see the revenue, and then I would like to see net income maybe. What else should we see? Mm, gross profit. So I don't really care about net income margin, right? Because as a high growth startup, for example, I don't expect them to be very, very profitable. But I do expect their profits to increase over time, right? I think gross profit is important. Gross margin is important because it's like this is the amount of money that if you buy your shampoo, for example, how much are they actually buy? If they sell the shampoo for $20, for example, how much are they buying the shampoo for? Is it $2 to $3, and then they're marking up like 8 times, 10 times, for example, right? So we want to see the margin basically like maintain, right? So over here you can see the margin is the green line right over here. So it's like 76%. It's like a quite consistent. It's not like 73%, 76%, right? So it's in the 70s or so. That you don't really see like a significant dip, and so that kind of suggests like pricing power of this thing right here. Yeah. Okay. And then if you see like this is over the past 5 years, right? I believe they've only been public for 5 years or so. Yeah, they've been unprofitable, but unprofitable, and then suddenly they have profits over time. But consistently, like the revenue has been increasing over time. So whenever I see a graph like this, right, it just tells me management has consistent ability to produce results and scale and grow, right? So like in growth advertising or growth marketing, for example, right, they always try to find new ways to grow, right? And in this case here, I'll show you guys. I believe they are also launching their new category called, yeah, let me show you guys. Yeah, they're launching a new category called oral testosterone and expanded personalized treatments, right? So a lot of the times in these companies, for example, because I do work in growth marketing in a bit, right? It's like, okay, they find products and then they launch products and then they try to scale their products, right? And over quarter, right? Generally, the subscriptions will stack over time. So you can see the revenue is like 74 million in 2021. In 2023, in the same quarter, for example, is 226 million. So it's almost a 3x increase in revenue, right? And the revenue increase, right, it's not some crazy spike, like just goes up like the Nvidias of the world. It's like a consistent increase over time because you need to build brand trust, you need to build brand loyalty. And the fact that people keep buying from you, right, means that your product is good enough, right? Otherwise, they won't come back to buy from you, right? So these things like you kind of have to factor in. It's like, does Trump RX have this? No, they do not have public company credibility. they have not have shown an ability to execute anything. So like, why should I believe that they're able to do this, for example, right? So stuff questions like that. Yeah. And then you can see here, for example, a lot of the times when revenue starts slowing down, right? For example, like here. So what these management teams will do is basically they'll come on an all hands meeting and then they'll figure out, it's like, hey, okay, what other categories can we launch in? What other products can we launch so that we're able to maintain this revenue growth over time? Because they are basically beholden to the investor, investors like me, investors like the institutional guys, etc., etc. And then yeah, they will have to do stuff like this, where it's like they are going to launch new categories so that they are able to expand revenue. And this is basically good news for the stock, basically, right? So you can see here, um, they are collaborating with this pharmaceutical company. They are expanding with this testosterone treatments. So these guys are probably their suppliers, and they're gonna do private label. So they're gonna label it with the HIMS logo and stuff like that. You can see they basically have done like market research already, right? So of like there's an estimated 20 million people in the US struggle with this problem right here, right? So if you think about the numbers, for example, 20 million struggle with this. If 2 million of them, for example, 10% market share, people buy this thing and then they buy it on a subscription, right? That is the type of like business planning that they are talking about, right? It can drain energy, dull mood, sexual desire, etc., etc. If you know anything about advertising, selling to men about sexual desire is it's quite straightforward. It's a no brainer sort of thing. Yeah, and then due to stigma, etc., etc. Right. So over time, right? For example, these companies right here, I believe HIMS is a well-run company because I mean I do follow the CEO quite a bit, so like I trust in his judgment and stuff like that. Yeah, so stuff like this is good news, and I believe that this is not the only news that's coming out from HIMS. Over time, the fundamentals should improve, and that's why I'm not too worried about, for example, like this, where okay, fair enough, like fat loss is a very massive category, and then we are not really partnering with these guys Novo anymore, but yeah, like there's we're still heading in the correct directions and stuff like that. And yeah, not too worried as well. Okay, so just letting you guys know, whenever you feel a certain way about a company, whenever like yeah you feel that oh shit, why am I still holding this? Am I gonna lose all my money and stuff like that? Just go back to a first principles thinking, right? Elon Musk always says this first principles thinking, right? Look at the past history, okay? Look at the execution history, see what has changed, right? In the past, they've been able to grow revenue consistently every single quarter, right? In the most recent quarter, there's been a revenue dip, which is not a good thing, of course, right? Let's acknowledge it's not a good thing, but you got to explain why. The reason why is because that Novo Nordisk, basically the fat loss drug stuff like that, they stopped partnering with these people, right? But they're gonna still sell a compounded semaglutide, for example, etc., etc. And then of course there are more headwinds, right? There are more headwinds of like yeah, the Trump RX stuff like that, the government going after you, etc., etc. And then from a company execution point of view, will that affect the future growth rate of this company? Yes, it will. Okay, I will definitely admit that, right? But at the same time, when you do see the revenue, for example, right, they're about 500 million every single quarter, so they're on pace to do about 2 billion plus in revenue, right? And then do I expect, or should they be able to hit 4 billion revenue, for example? Are they able to 2x the revenue in about 3 to 4 years time? I actually do believe so. It's quite reasonable. And so a company doing from 2 billion to 4 billion, for example, 4 billion in revenue, um, yeah, can they be about $25 billion market cap company? So you're paying about an 8x on revenue. Yeah, I believe so. I do believe so, yes. So yeah, my thesis is still sound. I will still hold this company. I am not really worried about it, honestly. Um, yeah, when I see stuff like that, um, yeah, not too worried. And then if you need more conviction, for example, you can go and check out the earnings call, etc., etc. And yeah, just build your conviction, right? Anytime a stock goes down, right, you guys just need to build conviction and stuff like that. My conviction is still in this. I may be totally wrong. I can be upfront with you, but yeah, I don't see this doing too badly over time. Yeah, and I hope I hope that me showing this video for you, for example, and then you coming back to this video over time, and if it really happens, it really goes through, and this really becomes a 20-25 billion dollar company, right? And then yeah, you just basically see the power of compounding and patience in the stock market. Okay, so yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Just a short breakdown of one of my companies or portfolios of how I think about things, but yeah, fundamentals are still very strong. I'm not too worried, and yeah, thank Thank you so much.